I am the resident. Hold on 1 second. I just need to click these. Got it. Okay. I'm the resident artist for ArtSnacks Quarterly, and this is our third quarterly box. And to say I was super excited about this box is an understatement. I've eagerly been awaiting it, so super excited to be here for the first live stream for this quarter. I have like a multidisciplinary background, so I like to do all sorts of art, but I do have a pretty heavy foundation in painting because I did art education and computer art in school, and a lot of foundational courses are taught using paint for teaching, for you to learn about how color works and um, how, like, if you've taken a 2D design class for like illustration, a lot of times you'll use paint or you'll use ink and a brush and stuff. So this is my bread and butter. I love using paint. I requested specifically, I was like, I'd love to do an acrylic paint for a box, and I was so excited when I found out it was going to be the golden SoFlat. So really excited to talk about this. And yeah, I thought today we can just kind of do like a swatch party plus a little extra, which if you've attended any of my like first of the quarter live streams, that's kind of what I've been doing. It's like I don't want to just swatch it out and like leave you with just the swatches, but so we're gonna swatch everything, we're gonna talk about everything, and then we're gonna do a little kind of like bonus thing to do with all your stuff. So if we want to go ahead and switch to the top-down camera, I'll go ahead and um start talking about everything. So I'll start with the paint. It is like the premier product of this box. So we'll just dive right in. We got 4 different colors. And I got to pick the colors in this palette, and I went with kind of a primary adjacent plus a tint, something you could lighten with. And instead of making it like a plain white, I also made it a color too. So it was, you could still use it on its own, or you could use it to lighten any of these other colors. So I really love what we ended up with. I also wanted to kind of keep that, like, it's ArtSnacks birthday this month, and I thought these were like good party colors that were very joyful. So I really love how these look. And if you haven't gotten golden before, something to note about them is this little swatch on the front is actually like hand painted on here. So this is what the paint looks like out of the bottle. Um, and underneath, like you can see it on this one, there's the little black lines. And so that is showing how this one is slightly more transparent than the blue one, where you can't even see those lines at all. And another way that you can kind of find out some of the technical specs about this paint is on the bottle. There's all these kinds of symbols that tell you about the paint. And so, and I will try to do my best here. I'm sure there's even things I still don't know about all the different symbols on here, but this box is the one that is showing opacity. And so this slash through it means it is semi-opaque, I believe. There's another one that has a slash through it that means semi-transparent. And then if it's just an open box, it means it's transparent. The ones that we got are either, like, I think this is the only semi-opaque one, and the other ones are marked as opaque. So you see that they have a filled in box there. So it's going to have a lot more coverage. And then the ASTM is talking about light fastness. And I think a 1 means it's going to be the most light fast. A 2 means it's not quite as light fast as a 1, and so on and so forth. I don't know exactly what number it goes up to. And if you're not familiar with light fastness, that is talking about how much the color is going to change once it's exposed, like, to the air and to like aging. So like how long that color will really stay true to itself. So 1 is great. That 1 and 2s are really awesome. They're going to be light fast for quite a long time. I think if you look up like the big text sheet, it even tells you like how many years it's supposed to stay that color. So that's kind of cool. And I don't know, I love kind of the nerdy ingredients, the science behind paint, I think is really fun. So there was one other thing I was going to mention, but it's escaped me at this moment. So I did want to mention this specific formula. So you might have seen Golden before, um, and seen their like a basic acrylic line or like their standard acrylic line. Um, but this is their SoFlat um, formula, and the SoFlat means it's a completely matte paint. It's completely matte paint, and it is also self-leveling. So if you have like if you're leaving brush strokes and stuff in your paint, it's going to be a lot less noticeable once it dries. It's going to level out on its own. It is also like way more densely pigmented than your standard acrylic paint, and that's where you get all of this opacity from. You're not going to be able to see through it. So, yeah, I think that's all I'll say for now. I'll talk about the paint more as we use it, but that is your little intro to this paint. The paper we got is a really heavyweight mixed media paper. I think this is great because if we had included like a paint board or something, you only would have gotten a couple of them due to like uh, the size of the box and shipping weight and all that jazz. And this paint is, I mean, the paint holds up on this paper super duper well, and you get an entire booklet of 20 sheets. So super awesome. Love this paper. Um, we get the washi tape, which you can use with your paint here and make geometric shapes or just tape off your border, or you can really tape this anywhere you want. Super great. Um, the brush is a flat shader shape, which I requested to use with this paint because it can really get into those like nooks and also create really fine lines when you turn it to the side. So I really love using a shader style for acrylics. And then we got our other like standout item from this box, which is the jelly rolls, and it's the new clickable version. Um, and if you were on the last live stream of the previous quarter, I did a little sneak peek of these and talked about them a little bit, but I was comparing them to the standard jelly rolls. The barrel is a little bit thicker. I think it's nicer to hold than the standard ones even because of that. And I do love how they kept the like attention to detail here and created like the edge of the pen cap, even though they like didn't need to do that, but I think it looks really nice. If I'm using both the standard jelly rolls and the clickable ones though, I do have to like separate them because I'll find myself trying to pull off the end of the cap. So be careful with that. Um, and then the last product in this box is the gosh, I forgot like all the technical names for this one. And I don't have it by me, but really great mechanical pencil. And the like special thing about this one is that it like as you use it and press down on it, it'll react to like you lifting your hand, and it creates these like micro turns as you use it, which then keeps the edge of your pencil sharp. So really cool mechanical pencil. Um, and then the last thing I want to talk about is the sticker, which we got a special shaped sticker. We broke our formula a little bit this quarter, and I got to design it, which is super exciting. I love getting to like kind of break out of a style guide and like go rogue. And this was really fun to make. I really wanted to highlight kind of what are to me the signature ArtSnacks colors, and have the teal color and the plum chester purple. And this is all to celebrate ArtSnacks' 11th birthday. Oh, and Sarah, I saw put in the chat what the mechanical pencil is. Thank you. Um, all right. So I have a few other extra supplies on hand that I'll be using today. One of these is a paper palette. So if you've never seen these before, it's a like pad of paper, and the top of it has like a real slick finish. And so you can mix paint on it like a plastic palette. But then when you're done, you just can tear this off and put it in the trash, or you can save it. If you're an art journal snacks, you can save it and use it as ephemera, which I always think is fun. This one in particular is really great because the palette is gray, which can kind of make mixing a little bit easier to have a neutral background instead of a white one. And then it also has a nice little like mixing guide and color wheel up here. So ArtSnacks has featured this product before, and I believe it's in the shop, but I haven't double checked. Something else I'm using today are some palette knives to do mixing. And then I also have a cup of water, some paper towels, and a ruler. And I also have some extra brushes around. I don't know if I'll reach for them, but just in case I need to, I have some extra brushes around as well, other than the flat shader. So what we are going to get to first, we're going to dive right into the paint, and I'm going to show you how I made this mixing grid. And so I drew a 4x4 grid and then basically showed how every color reacts to each other. And then you can keep this and for the whole quarter and be able to reference it so that you know how your paint's going to mix. It's also like if you haven't opened your paint yet, it's just a really good way to get to know your paint and get to know the formula. And it turns out really beautiful as well. So we're gonna do this. So to start, I'm going to take out a new page of my mixed media paper. And I am going to grab my ruler to create this grid. And you can make any size boxes, squares. I might even recommend making them a little bit bigger, just because sometimes you just end up mixing a lot of paint, so you have a place to put it. If not, you can save the paint that you mix for and like paint it on something before it dries. Let me see here. I'm gonna draw a 4-inch line here. Try to make that. I'm not a perfectionist, so it's not completely straight. It's fine with me, but I'll try to get it as close as I can. I have been loving seeing everyone's posts and mix already. That's so exciting. It was like the boxes had barely gotten on people's doorsteps, and you all were already posting the most beautiful images on there. So that is really fun. Keep it up. I love seeing it. Okay, and then I need to create the grid on the inside. So creating these mixing grids is something I see a lot for watercolor, and it will take into account transparency. Um, and so like one column, because you kind of end up mixing every color twice with this setup. And so one column would be like a more opaque version of that color. Um, but since we're going to be dealing with, oh, whoops, I need to do this. Since we're going to be dealing with really opaque acrylics that are already opaque, I'm going to be referencing more like what ratio I'm using. So, and I kind of try to have one column that's going to be an even 50-50 mix between two colors, and the other one might be lean more in a 20/80 direction or something, just so I can see the difference between the two. And some of them are very slight, but other ones are more noticeable. Okay, so I have my grid here. Something you can do is you can just write out the names um, here, and it would be the same on each side. So you'd write, you know, cerulean blue, uh, naphthol pink on this one, and then Naples yellow deep, and your light phthalo green. Or you can just put little swatches above it, which is what I did on this one. So whatever, and for me, this is like a better reminder of which column I was painting. So that worked better for me. Or you could write out the names, or you could do both. Um, and you'll kind of see how this builds as we go. But these colors look really similar, but like this one is more of a 50-50 mix between these two colors, and this one is leans more in the yellow direction. So I was just kind of playing with the ratio there so that you can kind of tell the difference between these ones actually look really similar, but in person I can see that this one is leaning more towards the red side, and this one is leaning more towards the green side. And I can tell that simply because this one is more opaque. So that is what that's telling me. So, okay, we will just begin mixing our paints. And I'm just gonna tuck this underneath, and I'm gonna work on this entire pad here. And, or actually, maybe that's not good. I'm gonna tear a piece off. Okay. And I'm going to grab a palette knife, and I don't know if there's like you're just going to end up with a lot of paint on your palette and a lot of little places to mix. So I don't know if there's really a best way to get all your paint out. I'll show you what I do, but if you don't follow this exact method for mixing, that's fine. It does say stir thoroughly. I'm just going to give mine a little shake. Um, they worked fine with that yesterday. So, all right. And I'm just going to get some out and some on my palette. Um, so I kind of know how much I'm going to be using throughout this. Um, I'm trying to put a little bit less than what I'll be using, so that I can go back and add more. I would try not to get too much out at the beginning. It's better to go back and add some. But acrylic paint also does dry quickly. So you don't want to do this if you're not going to have the time right now to paint it in, and then your paint will go to waste. So um, do try to have ample time to work with it. And I'm getting a different palette knife for everyone. Again, it's a lot of stuff, but this does save me time during the stream to like keep washing the same palette knife. So that's why I'm doing that. And I will inevitably have to wash some of them to mix some colors, but it does save me a little time here. Okay, but I'm just getting out kind of like 2 scoops, I guess, of each one. And then let me move these this direction so I have space to work. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my brush, and I'm going to paint down my diagonal, the like solid colors, and you paint them as is, no mixing. And before I do that, I can also mark if you wanted to mark above the column or row. So this is going to be the blue one, and then this whole square will get filled in blue. So I'm going to paint that in. And it's really easy to uh, paint the, geometric shapes with this brush. You could also tape it off if you wanted it to be super duper sharp. That would take up a little bit too much time of the stream, so I'm not doing that today. But it does look super duper nice. And it is really fun to watch this paint transform because like all the paint's going to be shiny while it's wet, but as soon as it dries, it gets that super duper matte, like almost gouache-like finish. And I know Golden developed this color, or not this type of formula um, for years and years. When they launched it a few years ago, they did a lot of um, information on the manufacturing process on their socials. And so if you are also kind of like a paint nerd and want to go watch that, I definitely recommend their Instagram account. I don't know if they still do it, but they used to do like live paint mixing stuff, and um, they also have a lot of videos talking about their uh, like iridescent formulas and metallics and stuff. So it's pretty cool to see how that all gets made. So I'm just cleaning my brush off before I do the next color. And I like to paint these flat areas of the unaltered color first so that they're their most true selves before I start mixing them together because it's going to become uh, less less of a chance they'll be completely unaltered as I proceed. So I'm going to mark my row and column first, and then go in with this pink color. Can't remember who it was on Mix, but they said this palette, the color palette reminded them of like pop art. And I definitely agree. And I was like, maybe we need to have a pop art themed live stream. That could be pretty fun. Okay. So we got that pink one painted. Trying to wash off my brush as good as I can. All right, and onto the yellow.
Hey, Caitlin, Sarah jumping in here.
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to drop them in the chat and I can check them out. And I'm just agreeing, I'm just like nodding my head with my screen off when you talk about all the content that Golden puts out and like how they used to do like color mixing Mondays on Instagram where it would just be like the process of making a color, and it is so satisfying to just watch like acrylic paint be made or something like that. So
Right. I guess I just didn't realize uh like there's a huge difference between like student grade supplies and then like artist
mm,
grade supplies. And one of those is like artist grade supplies are using like the actual pigments like for these
right.
paints. They're not dyed these color. Like these are chemically made colors or naturally occurring colors that are purified. So it's really fascinating to like get into it. Although they do have a fun little fact about their, I think it's their neon colors. Because neons aren't like naturally occurring. Those ones are, they take little tiny like polymers and then they dye them the color, and then that is what becomes the pigment in the paint. So really fascinating, golden.
Yes.
So great. And also they're one of the only like the US doesn't really have like a bunch of art supply companies, and they're like one of the few,
Hmm.
which is really cool. So they're in New York.
Yeah, they're
Um,
in upstate New York.
yeah.
Before the pandemic happened, Lee and I went to visit their um, essentially their offices and manufacturing like facility. And I just remember, yes, we watched a lot of paint be made. But when you were saying before, the paint is on the outside of every label, they have like a whole assembly line of people that just walk around and swatch the paint, whatever color they're making that hour. They just like hand swatch the paint on the label. It's very funny. It's like,
Right.
how else would they do it? Why would they use a machine when you can use a human? So it was very cool.
Yeah. It's also a testament of the light fastness of the paint that they're confident enough to paint it on the outside of their bottle without it changing, which is pretty cool. Okay, so I have my diagonal done. It's looking good. Um, you can see on my like or on your bottles where you like some of them like these are both labeled opaque, and I'm sure this one is still super duper opaque. It's you can tell though that the blue is more opaque than the yellow. So if you wanted to take this time to go ahead and put in a second coat over it so that you're not seeing any of your paper peek through, go ahead and do that. I'm going to leave mine as is, but um now would be the time while you have the pure colors available to you. All right, so I'm going to start with these two squares. So it's going to be mixing uh the like you can tell it's so this is going to be mixing the red and blue. And it's because if you drop down to this square, it's the red square and the blue, or it's the red column and the blue row. And this is going to be the blue column and the red row. And so I'm going to mix them. They're going to turn out pretty similar, but I am going to have try to have like a slight mix up between my ratio, just so I can see how the paint's reacting, get to know my paint, um, and so on. So I'm going to create a little area over here to mix this, and I'm just going to use the paint that's on uh the end of my palette knife to do this because there's already a pretty decent amount on there. I think though this is a little bit more blue heavy, so when I do my second square of this um, color pairing, only going to add red to it. All right, try to get off a little bit more of the red on here, or pink, although it's a very red pink. So, and the reason why we get a uh pretty dark purple here, or like muddied purple, because this is a very warm pink and it's a very uh like cool toned blue. So the way you would change that is by having still a cool toned blue, but if you had more of a magenta, like that's where this is gonna turn out looking like super duper purple. So this is going to be a little bit more desaturated, because uh, this pink is leaning more towards orange, more warm. So it's going to have more of that complementary color effect there, but it's still purple. And I'm just going to take it straight from the palette knife, and paint it in this box right here. And also what I love about this is visually this color is darker than the blue, even though the blue is already pretty dark. You know now that mixing these two colors together is going to expand your palette to have a really deep, um, desaturated color to use that's going to be close to black. So that's nice to know when you'll be starting your next composition. Even though it will smooth out uh, on its own and create, a flat finish with how matte this paint is. I do like to go over it and at least take some of the excess paint off, just so that it looks nicer. Um, I know to you guys, you can't like you're not seeing any of the dimension as much as I am in person. So, um, yeah, but I love how dark that color is, and I really feel like it expands what you can do with these paints. Okay, so for the next square for this one, that's also going to be red and blue, I'm just going to pick up some of my red and mix it together into this. I might mix like a little bit more. Trying to keep one side of my red not like not have blue in it so I can keep using it to mix with other colors. All right. So mix those together, and again, it's still pretty similar to that other color, but it's definitely more of a red tone. And if you end up having paint left over from this exercise, but you don't have anything to start on, um, you could just, I like opening up one of my sketchbooks to a blank page I haven't used yet, or a page I don't like in my sketchbook, and I'll just go ahead and just lay down a bunch of paint on it to get like a fresh start. So if you don't have anything left to do with like the leftover paint, that's an idea for you. Or you could cover uh, one of these mixed media papers with the washi tape, just kind of in random directions, and then just go crazy on filling in all the triangles and stuff. Could be cool. Okay, so there it is. I'll hold it up once it's going to be too shiny right now, whatever I do to hold it up, but I'll show you closer once we have all of those filled in so you can really see how the slight differences between those if you're not working on one of these at home. Okay, so my next one is going to be, let's see what I want to do next. Um, I'll go ahead and just stick with the blue column here. And we're going to do yellow and blue. I'm going to lay down the yellow on this one, and then I'm going to try to pick up about the same amount of blue that was there. And I like using this kind of like scraping and pushing technique to mix my paint when I'm using a palette knife. This part is sticking to that. There we go. Okay. So a nice green color there. So this was the yellow and blue. And now for the next square, after I'm done with this, I can pick, do I want to add more yellow or more blue? Trying to look at my other one to see what I did. I think I might like to add more yellow for my next square. It's really pretty, almost like emerald toned green. Oh, I thought I was gonna sneeze, but I didn't. All right. Cleaning that up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to pick up some more yellow, and I'm just gonna try to, so I was trying to see if I could just drop it in there without getting this palette knife dirty. There we go. Now that palette knife is still just a yellow one for some of my other squares. All right, mixing that up. All right. And then we'll paint this box. And I have a little uh, example from college to show you. If you were on my like color theory live stream a couple months back, I talk a lot about how colors move forward and backward in space, like visual space. And so this exercise, mixing your paints together, give you a really good idea what colors are going to pull forward and what colors are going to pull backwards. And that helps you determine, how you're going to render a shadow, how you're going to render something that's supposed to be in front of something else, and what color visually would be best for that. And so then you're able to look at this and be like, wow, what color is really like standing out to me? And that can help you determine, what you want to make your focal point or lots of different decisions and composition can help you out and really like enhance your composition. Obviously, there's no wrong answers with what color you want to make something. But if you are looking to kind of enhance your 2D design, that can really help. And I can post a picture of this on Mix if it would be helpful. But this is the example of that. It's kind of big to hold up. It might be better to like look at my side view, but I can hold this up later at the end and talk about it a little bit more. But you can already kind of see that there are colors. There you go. Thank you. That pull forward more than other ones. Um, and I only got a B on this, so it's not perfect. Um, I can see it written on the back of this. But you can kind of tell, I'm trying to see what you can kind of tell this, my image is mirrored, so very confusing. But you can kind of tell that the yellow and the green are competing to get pulled forward the most, and I was supposed to have more of a definite like 1 through what is 5 or no, 6 on here. You can barely even see the one on the bottom. It's really close to black. So, yeah, so that can teach you a lot about, where's your eye gonna go, right, when you're looking at something, and is that what you are trying to pull the viewer to? Yes or no. And if it's a no, then maybe you want to try experimenting with a different color that's going to stand out more. So once you finish your little grid, you'll be more informed of what's going to pull way in the back, what's going to pull forward. Um, so we'll keep working on this grid for a little bit longer, but I might stop short just so I can show you another little thing I've been working on with these paints, and we can talk about it a little bit more. So let's proceed.
That is my cue to chime in here and tell you that we're about halfway through class.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay, so next on my list here is yellow and red. So I'm going to pick up some yellow and drop it over here. And I'm going to try to pick up some red over here. And I might need to get some more red out for my other colors, red, but maybe I'll just use up the rest of this red here for this one. I really love this might be my favorite color combo out of all of them. It's creating this like orangey coral. Okay. And make sure I'm in the right column here. Okay. Actually looking at this has a decent amount of yellow in it, but it's still so close to the pink color that maybe I want to try adding more yellow and seeing what that'll do. This looks like a sunset color. Right. And then I'm gonna grab a little bit more yellow. It's probably not gonna change too much, but we'll see. That pink color seems to be very powerful. And throughout the quarter, if and like anytime, you're welcome to post what you would like to see in the live streams or something a technique you're curious about, once you get your box and are exploring the supplies. And I'd be happy to include that in any of the future live streams. Um, and yeah, so if there's anything in particular with acrylics that, you might be unfamiliar with or curious about, I can definitely do my best to um, include that into my future live streams. It's almost off screen there. Right, before I move on, I want to hold this up to the camera a little closer so you can look at the matte finish of the ones that are dry. And also, like, you can already see how even though these were so similar, this one is, more yellow than this one. Um, and you can see those slight differences. This one definitely is more warm tone to me in person. It's not reading as much on the camera, but you can probably tell a little bit. Um, so yeah, fun. Okay. Still have time to fill out at least a couple more before I move on. When this is dry, it would also be a really fun thing for you to experiment with your gel pens on top of it and do different mark making and pattern making. These work great on top of this paint. Okay, what am I gonna do here? Okay, blue and oh, I haven't marked down the color on the outside. That was definitely confusing. Okay. Okay, gonna put some of this out here. And we'll do the blue, which I do need a clean palette knife, so I'm gonna try to wipe this off as best as I can to pick up the blue. I guess I can go ahead and use this palette knife as well. This one's very oceany looking, this color combo. If you've used titanium white before with painting, you know how kind of like powerful it can be, especially in like enhancing a hue. So this green is gonna work really similarly to that. Okay. Then I'm going to mix even more of the green into it. All right, so basically just an even lighter blue. I haven't really used these paints diluted with water much. Um, like I've used that with regular acrylics, but I haven't really tried that with the SoFlat formula. So I can't attest to what they perform like with that, but I'm confident that whenever James posts his video and all of the experiments he puts his supplies through, I'll probably find out then what what happens. So I'm sure you can, I mean, since it's acrylic based, I'm sure it works fine to be diluted. I'm not sure how that reacts with like the formula and opacity and such. I'm sure it changes a lot.
I will chime in here real quick and let you know that James has received his box.
Oh, nice.
I know we're almost like halfway through March, but we had some shipping issues. His box went rogue.
Oh no.
So um, the video that I make for this subscription will be coming soon.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
I did not realize that it was delayed, but I was like, maybe time is just moving really, really fast. It's like maybe because it's the first live stream, to me, it's, the exact start of the quarter. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna stop here, um, just so that I can dive into the little example I have to show you guys of what I'm working on. And I specifically made my grid before I started working on this example to use it as a tool. So I'm making ArtSnacks a little birthday card, which I think Sarah does have the PO box for it. So if you want to send ArtSnacks a birthday card, you don't have to use your uh, box supplies to make them one. You're welcome to, but don't, if you want to save those just for your personal use, that's totally fine. But so I'm working on this 11 kind of typography style card. I have only gotten started on it, haven't added all of my um, yeah, detail works. I stopped on it kind of after I got to a point where I was going to start layering colors on top of each other, and I wanted to make sure it was super duper dry. But when I worked on this, I wanted to make sure I was using colors that were going to pull in the right direction, specifically with the shadow of the ones. And so when I made that purple, that really dark purple, I knew that that was going to be my darkest shade. So that was going to be the best color for a shadow. And then looking at my palette, I certainly could have gone with a green for this one as well, because that's also pulling back pretty far, but I went ahead and went with just like a straight blue for that. Um, the red, um, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to use all the colors. The rest of them are kind of random, but I am going to be doing some more shading on here and on the background. And this just really making the grid really informs my decision making around how I'm going to be shading it, and how all the paints are going to react to each other. So I was going to do some more work on this on stream. Show you what I'm going to be doing. Trying to figure out, I'm gonna put this over here. I'm gonna move my palette knives over to the other side. And I think I'm just gonna use the paint I already have down. Uh, One of the first things I'm going to do on this is that green is basically like a white. And I wanted to outline my numbers in the white color. A little bit too much on my brush there. And I did sketch out this design on with pencil first. And my pencil marks are pretty much all covered up. I didn't even do any erasing. Um, I did miss a spot right here, which I couldn't tell until it was totally dry because the paint's kind of shiny when it's wet, and I just thought this was like a shiny spot. So that was my mistake. I might put a pattern or something inside this one, instead of going back and trying to color match it exactly. Otherwise, I'll have to just paint the whole area again, which is also okay. Oh, and I didn't mention that this is the mixed media paper, just one sheet folded in half, so you can kind of see the size of, still is a pretty decent size, even folded in half. Ooh, need to move my water cup. Almost had a disaster there. Okay. And then I'm gonna outline the other one. I think my sizes were just slightly different here on my ones, but I wasn't too precise sketching them out. I kind of eyeballed it, so that's on me. But yeah, I think it's really important to get to know your colors as like flat areas of color, um, instead of painting gradients, which is also important and fun to do. But it really helps you to get to know your colors, um, when you're just dealing with painting like the areas of flat color, especially with this kind of paint. And I can see from what everyone's posting on Mix, a lot of you are really embracing, um, that style. So that's really cool.
Hey, Caitlin. There's no questions in the chat at the moment, but I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So I think all of us are very used to, using SoFlat or acrylic paint on paper or canvas for that matter.
Yes.
Have you tried putting SoFlat on any other type of surface?
I haven't actually, other than like I've seen how it it goes onto like my mixing palette that has a plasticky slick surface. I also put some little swatches on my bag. Um, so that's kind of cool. You can see how shiny my bag is, and then the swatches are completely static, which is kind of neat. And they feel pretty stable on here. Like it didn't like I can kind of flex this around and it's not like flaking off. Like it's still pretty I don't know, kind of how acrylic paint you can kind of like bend it, you know? So I would say it's similar to that. It's not going to be like tempera paint. Tempera paint, yeah, that's gonna kind of flake off. I haven't tested this, you know, and really put it through um formal testing to see what would happen. But I thought that was kind of fun that it was like that. But I haven't painted it on. I have painted it on canvas before, but not. Um, I haven't done like I've done like a primed canvas, like a gessoed canvas. So, which a lot of canvases come pre-gessoed. Like if you buy like a canvas board, it's typically pre-gessoed. So, um, yeah.
Interesting. I've used it on the wood panels before, and they're gorgeous. I think it's like, I mean, it's great on paper and canvas, but I was pleasantly surprised how
Yeah.
nice it looks on like a light wood or anything like that.
Right. I'm sure that's nice too because it doesn't have it's so smooth. Um, no tooth or anything on something like that. Okay, so that was I'm getting some transparency on the green, so I'm gonna go back over it again. I want that to be crisp. And if you remember, the green one is the one that is labeled as semi-opaque. Been doing a lot of art journaling lately. I'm excited to use these in my art journal. Pretty pumped. Which is a good time to mention that I think Sarah did a post earlier this week or last week about the mix groups, and you can go check out the Art Journal mix group. It's open to everybody. So if you've ever been curious about any of the other uh, subscription options, watercolor snacks or Art Journal snacks, you can go check those out on Mix. So that's pretty fun.
We have a question in the chat. Um, you mentioned earlier you use this in a sketchbook. Would I need to seal it with anything? I learned a lesson with gouache the first time.
Interesting. So I have not actually used SoFlat in a sketchbook. I've used other acrylics in a sketchbook and I don't seal it. But if you're talking about um let me see if I have somewhat of an example in one of my sketchbooks. I need to find it. Okay, so if you're talking about this, like where it can stick like that, Or if like I typically this is one of the other night I was painting in my art journal and I had a bunch of leftover paint. So this is a good example, probably what you're talking about, of how it can stick on either side because acrylic paint's gonna have that like sticky, shiny uh texture. I don't know how this one does when it's pressed up against itself. I would assume if you had only painted one side that it would be fine and you wouldn't have to worry about the other side. In my art journal where I paint on both sides, again, I haven't used SoFlat in there, so I'm not sure. But I use a lot of acrylic paint, and when they're pressed up against each other, I do seal it with something so that it doesn't have that sticky kind of crunch when you open it. And you can seal it with lots of different kinds of things. You could also just keep pieces of wax paper inside of your sketchbook and put it on there. Uh, I use, you can buy like a formal artist sealing wax to put on top that you can paint on. I just use a candle. So I just take a candle and just rub it in my art journal on the page, just lightly. And then it does leave some residue. So, if you're really picky about how something's going to look, definitely like test it on something before you go crazy. Um, but that's what works for me. I know that other people use baby powder to keep sticking away. I haven't used that method personally. Um, I would be interested in, like, I do varnish my pieces, but I still feel like even a varnish is going to leave a sticky, like similar to acrylic type texture. But I will be eager to put this in my art journal and let you know how it performs, before I do the wax. Um, so that's interesting. I saw you said it rubbed blue all over. And is that over did it rub it over the like page that was pressed up against it, or did it kind of like spread onto uh the page itself? Rubbed over to the other page across from it. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll definitely do some tests with it. I'm curious now. Like gouache, uh, especially if it was like a traditional gouache, with like traditional gouache binder, like that's going to be a binder that's typically used in watercolor. So the pigment isn't as, I want to say, trapped in the formula as much as acrylic. Where like acrylic paint, the binder being acrylic is going to like keep those pigments inside a little bit better than something like a watercolor that is um, that could be reactivated. And I would feel like where the pigment is living a little bit more outside of the binder than in an acrylic paint, that uh if that helps you visualize that. All right, so I got that layer done. We still have a little bit more time, so I'll show you what step I'll be working on next. I was going to start taking some of the red, and I'm just going to use what's left of this purple on my palette knife and just mix it into this red right here. Because I don't really want to darken it too much because we've seen like how dark it can really get. And I don't want a color that's too similar to my background color here. So I'm just trying to soften that red a little bit. Try not to get my sleeve in my painting here. My paint has started to dry a little bit, so I got to be careful with that. Okay.
Hey, Caitlin.
Yes.
I think you talked about this earlier, but I love the way that your palette paper is turning out, like a piece of art on its own.
Right. Yeah, I
It
think
would
I
be,
have.
and it's gonna be perfect for your art journal for sure.
Right, I know. I saved my other one. I don't know where I put it in here, but it also turned out really great. So,
And I also want to give you a time check. You have about 15 minutes left.
all right, great. Okay. So I want to create some dimension on on like the top of my numbers. We can already see that I've created some dimension showing how they look like they're in front. The blues and purple here, kind of the middle, and the yellow is the background. But I also want these like outlines to have a dimension to it. I want it to look like they're raised above my pink. And already visually, it is kind of doing that a little bit. It looks like because I'm kind of playing with that color theory um, element, it looks like my white is kind of floating above the red. So that's already pretty cool. But what I want to start doing is adding a shadow, and I'm pretending that the light is coming down from this corner. So my shadow is going to be, going in this direction, which will become more clear as I paint it in. And again, this is what this nice tiny brush is really great for. So if you think of this one kind of like the candles that I did on top of the cake, where they have that like raised bumpy line that is actually like a little bit higher up. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking. And I probably could have even picked like could have mixed an even more subtle shadow color, but really anything will work for this. Okay. So you see, oh, well, you'll see as soon as it's dry. You see it's going to start looking like it's casting a shadow into the one. And then since I know it's coming from this direction, I want to paint it on this long part here. But I also want to put it at a slight angle at the top instead of coming straight out from that. And this is also something you could go in with pencil first to kind of like figure out exactly how you want this to lay. And I'm like, I keep like needing to put my hand up here to like help myself visualize how it looks. And then I'll need to do this top part here and the side. So you can start to see it. Now it looks like that edge has like a lip. It's like a lip around the one. And the thicker that you make that, like if I brought it out more towards the center, it's gonna make that look taller. Like it's gonna be more like it has taller walls around the outside. Um, and this is something you can just basically keep doing to every single, layer that you put on there. Still have a little bit more time. So the light's coming down from this corner, so I need to angle this one this way, right at that corner. My paint is getting a little sticky. I'm gonna have to remix some, though I do have some on my palette knife as well. Should utilize that. Okay, so that is looking good to me. I can go ahead and do the next one, and that's going to be a little bit easier because I don't have to think about it as much. I can just copy the one on the left. And I will be posting the final result of the card on Mix when I'm done. So you can look out for that. And if you would like, I'd be happy to post a template um, for you to do this exact 11 uh, situation. So let me know if that is of interest to you guys. I did post, I loved seeing my last live stream. We did like a big doodle session with the supplies, and I posted a bunch of ideas for doodles, and so many people posted on Mix. It was really fun to see that. Right, a little bit down here. So something that would finish this off really nice is taking one of my gel pens and outlining the numbers further. I think it would look great really in any, like the silver or the gold would look really cool on this. Um, but you can see how now it looks like there's the light coming down from that top corner. And I still have a few minutes, so I'll show you my next step. Um, Instead of creating a full gradient in the background where I'm going to go from like yellow all the way to green, I'm going to more create a visual gradient where you paint like stripes basically, and they get thinner and thinner as you go from left to right. I think I'm only going to do a couple though in the background, but I'll get started on the first one. And I think I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler here. And I need to be careful that I put lines not in a too much of an interfering place for my numbers where it's going to cut it off in a weird spot. But something like this medium green color is going to be perfect. Might need to remix that. I do need to remix it. Okay. That was I'm gonna take what's left of this yellow, drop it in here, and the blue. It looks like this is a little bit more blue toned than the original color, but that is a-okay. It might even be cooler as I go from left to right to start at one point using a newly mixed color that has a little bit more yellow in it to enhance that visual gradient. But for now, I'm just gonna paint this in on this side. And um, this is also something you could use the washi tape on. But again, just for time's sake, I'm not going to be taping it off today. We will definitely do an exercise on one of the other live streams that uses the washi tape so you guys can see it in action. I definitely wanted, I feel like this is like the biggest lesson of the quarter is getting to know these paints and how they work. So I wanted to do this one first and really kind of get down the basics so that my other live streams I can reference this one. And you guys have it as a tool if you're having trouble with something, you're like, oh, I really need to go back and make that paint mixing grid or something, that you will have it available.
Hey, Caitlin, we have about 5 minutes left.
Great.
Um, we have one question in the chat, and then I was thinking if anybody felt like showing what they made tonight. What do you think?
I think that's great.
Um, the one question in the chat is, how do you clean the dried acrylic off your brushes?
Great question. Um, I I was like, do I have it over right here? I was just using it. No, it's over across the room. I use soap and water on the regular. Especially I wash my brushes the night I use them when I'm being super on top of things. So I always keep a cup of water, and I usually don't let my brush like sit out just like how I have it right now. I'll just immediately put it in the water so none of that acrylic really has the chance to harden on my brush, um, until I get the chance to go and like formally clean it. And then um, I use just my whatever soap I have at my kitchen sink. So whether that's dish soap or hand soap. And then I put that into the palm of my hand and I rub the brush like this into my hand to wash it off. And that helps to agitate the brushes enough to get the paint off, but not enough that you're really scrubbing it a lot. Like your hand is gonna be a gentle surface for that. You can put a glove on or something if you're worried about like what type of pigments you're using or if you're sensitive to anything like that, or just maybe if you don't want to dye your hand a certain color. Um, and then when I'm feeling like like my brush needs an extra special bath, that's when I break out my Master's brush cleaner. And that stuff is just like the best. You can get tiny ones, you can get big ones. They come in like all size, like a bunch of sizes. So you can have one that you can like keep with you, like in your little pencil bag. Or you can have like a giant one at home for like your super duper big brushes that need a bigger thing. And that works. It's like a little disc of soap. Um, and you get your brush wet and then you swirl it around in the soap and then basically until the water runs clean. And it does a really nice job, I think, conditioning my brushes as well. So if I sometimes leave my brushes in my water too long, I'll kind of make sure to go and then also use the Master's brush cleaner to also just kind of like help keep the health of my brushes up. And then if you want to take it one step further, once your brushes are clean, you can use a brush shaper on them to uh, get your brush back in its original shape. It's kind of like a like hair gel for your brush, and you can like stick your brush in there when it's clean, and then put all the bristles back where they're supposed to be, and then um, you can it'll kind of have that crunch to it like it does when you have a brand new brush, and it'll just dissolve once you start using it. So that is how I clean my brushes. Really on the regular, just whatever soap I have at my sink, and just being gentle with it until the water runs clean.
Nice. A whole process.
Yep.
Does anybody feel like sharing what they made tonight? If you do, you can visually show your hand or virtually put your hand up and I can spotlight you. Totally up to you. This does sort of feel like a workshop kind of night where you can just get some art making done. I'm collaging at the moment, so I'm doing some art making. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to give that space if anybody wanted to show off some stuff they're making. Oh, I see in the chat, Caitlin, can you move your paper up a bit?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
Someone in the chat also says, I did just watch, but I can show the pop art she mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Brandy, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to chat.
Hello.
Hi.
I've had an absolute blast with this box. So here is, oh, I don't know if it's going to show with my background. Uh-oh.
There you go.
So
You got to put your body in it too.
yeah. Oops. So that's the pop art. And I actually posted it on the mix as well. It just really gave me the pop art vibes whenever I was doing it. So thank y'all for curating this because it's amazing.
I'm so glad.
That's
Yay. And it
awesome.
looks
Thanks for
great. I love
sharing.
your
It looks, yeah, I really love it. I love the glasses.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I tried with the gel pen over it. It worked well with like a darker color when I swatched, but whenever it came to that lighter opaque green, I had to use a paint pen on it because it wasn't the white gel pen wasn't showing up as well.
Gotcha.
Hot tip. Thanks, Brandy. Also seeing in the chat, I just use a tennis ball that is cut in half and use the bowl inside as a surface to swish your brush and soap around in without getting your hand dirty. Wow, that is actually so genius.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I got plenty of tennis balls hanging around from the dog, so I will definitely be doing that. That's awesome. Thank you for that tip, Darla Joe. I appreciate that. All right. We're technically at time, but if anybody else has anything else they want to share, questions, comments, now is your chance. But otherwise, Caitlin, I am all for putting that 11 template on Mix. I think that's a great idea. I feel like every time I do numbers with that like shadow, I screw it up somehow. So I'd love a template. That would be great.
Yeah, I can definitely whip that up for sure.
Yeah, that would be cool. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming here live tonight and working on art making, making that a priority. So thank you for your time. Caitlin, thank you for your time as well. Very excited for the next few live streams with this box. I have been using the retractable gel pens like crazy. So I'm excited to dive into those this quarter.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.